My name is Cathy van Eck and I'm a composer and sound artist. I'm originally from the Netherlands, but I live now in Zurich in Switzerland. As a kid I started to play the piano, as many kids do, and we wanted to play a piece of music with all the neighbor kids together, and then we realized that there wasn't any piece for our combination of instruments, and in fact most music was much too difficult for us anyway. So then I started to compose a piece for all of us so we could play something together. That was how I started to create music of my own, and I continued this during school, and after school I decided that I wanted to study composition. And when I started studying composition, this was writing scores for musical instruments, and that's how I did my bachelor degree in composition. Then I also started to work in the studio, and I started to work with sounds coming out of computers, of recording sounds, etc. And I realized that this was something I really liked out of different reasons. So slowly I left the instruments out of my work, and instead I took objects and all kind of everyday actions into my work, and I started to use all kinds of sounds. Some of them are recorded sounds, some of them are electronic sounds in my work, and started to become someone who was mainly working with what we call electronic music. One of the things I liked so much of working in the studio was that I had direct access to the sound. I could grab it, I could catch it, and I could transform it and send it out again and it had become something completely different. I have a small loudspeaker here, as you see, and the loudspeaker, when I play some sound through it, I can of course play all kinds of sound to it, and I'll give you an example. So, what did you just hear? I think we will all answer something like kids screaming, running around, it's loud, etc. But if we look at the loudspeaker, we see what we just heard is actually a diaphragm made from paper, and it's an old one. So it's even as you see, the paper is broken a bit. And that's what we just heard, were just vibration of this diaphragm, which brought the air into vibration, and this air vibrations, these air pressure waves, touched our ears. So that's what we mainly heard. And as we see, these loudspeakers are very good in transmitting sounds and giving us the idea of what the sound in fact is. We hear children, and even if it is just a paper. And we see this also in commercials for loudspeakers. We see, for example, common phrases to say that with these loudspeakers you will hear the orchestra in your living room. Evidently this is not true. It would also be much too loud to really have an orchestra in your living room. You just have two loudspeakers reproducing an orchestra, or the sound of an orchestra in your living room, and it's well enough done that we recognize it. The next sound you will hear are passing by cars, but we don't have any cars really passing by here. Of course, we just have again the same loudspeaker, and that's one of the things I like, that these objects that make a specific sound, and when you're in that situation, they pass by and you hear them passing by. But when we have them through the loudspeakers, that changed already a lot already, because I can take them in my hand and I can have it with me. I can carry the sound with me. So the car sounds are there, and I can held them in my hands. And from this idea onwards, I started to make a piece where the sounds are not carried in my hands, but where I carry them on my back, and I have 2 big orange horns, and I can move these horns, and I can play these sounds back into the city in an environment where there are walls, where there are cars also passing by, real cars. So I send them back in the city, and I can move the sound in different directions. This is something I was really interested in having a kind of acoustic image of the city played back in the city. But I decided not to use the sounds which we do have already in the city anyway, but I looked at sounds which were forbidden in the city. And if I looked at different laws, actually in the city of Bern, in the archive, I looked at different sound legislation laws, and there I found, for example, that it was forbidden to scream during Christmas, or it was forbidden to hit your carpets and to clean them in that way in these streets. It was forbidden to use any car horns around these times of the day, etc. So there were many forbidden sounds, and depending on where you were, what time it was, etc. And all these sounds, I decided to use them in the piece, and I transformed them because I realized, well, I can't really play them back because they were forbidden. And so I transformed them into slightly distorted sounds. So if you listen to the fragment I'm gonna let you hear, you hear some cars hooping, you hear some kids screaming, or you hear something which might be someone working on something, hammering or sawing, but it's not the real sound of that, but it has been transformed, and these sound corpses are played back in the city during this performance.